Yeah, I'm really excited.
You're on. Carol is on, so I'm just going to yell. So we're glad you're here tonight. We do college panel every year if you haven't been before. And we do this, it's a collaboration of the Briarwood School of House and also Houston Branch International Dyslexia Association. So we welcome you here. I'm Mary Yaris. I'm actually affiliated, well, I work for House and I'm also affiliated with Houston Branch IDA. So on behalf of both of those groups, we're glad you're here. We have not planned a college share for this spring, mostly because we just weren't feeling creative. If there's something you want to hear about, something you want to hear, or a topic, please let us know because we can plan something. So tonight we have Carol Wills from the Briarwood School as our moderator. And before I forget, there are some flyers here for upcoming seminars for Fridays at House. For any of you who have your kids in public school, charter school, the Texas Dyslexia Handbook has been updated, and there is a talk January 25th, and we have not sent out that e-blast yet, but once we send the e-blast, that will be full within a few hours. So if you're interested in signing up for that, please go to our website and do that tonight, because that'll probably be happening next week. So, Carol, welcome. You can start. Thank you.
And thank you all so much for coming. We have been doing this, as Mary said, for many, many years, and I have the honor and privilege of moderating. And every year, families walk away, parents, students, knowing more from these panelists who live this life of learning difference, which is a component, just a component of your lives. And the colleges, so 5 panelists tonight we have invited, highly selected, and they represent 5 different colleges, which is 5 different universities, colleges, which you will have a good picture of what is out there and how to make everything work once you have made the step into college. So we're very happy that you have taken the time to come tonight. When we're finished, we will end and give about 10 to 15 minutes for you to ask questions. So again, thank you students for coming. You'll be glad you did, and we appreciate this. So first question, I'm going to toss the microphone to Ford, and if you will just go down the line and introduce yourselves and tell us where the colleges are named there for you. So.
My name is Ford Anderson. I went to Schreiner University, recently graduated in December. I studied finance and business management.
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I go to the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm an economics major, and I'm a freshman.
Hi, I'm Catherine Walker, and I go to Texas A&M right now. I'm a junior, and I am a special education major.
Hi, my name is Dylan Welling. I go to Trinity University. I'm a junior, and I'm studying business and entrepreneurship.
Hi, I'm Rebel Westheimer, and I go to University of the Ozarks, and I am currently in my 4th year, and I am majoring in business administration with minors in psychology and American studies.
Okay, hold the mic, and then we'll come back this way. The question is, how did you choose the college that you did? What went into that, and why did you choose the ones that you did?
Well, my mom actually found U of O when I was a junior at Briarwood, and it has a learning support center called the Jones Learning Center, and I'm very proud to be part of it. And I took my tour there my senior year. I met with a student and gave me the tour. They were in the JLC, and they had a learning difference as well. And once I met the students and those with learning differences and those who didn't, I felt right at home. And so it was my mom who I have to thank that helped me find my school that I go to now.
So I went to a really small high school, and so when I was picking my college or university, I really went over for a smaller one. So Trinity has about 2,300 undergraduate, and I think that was part of the reason why I just could not handle, 40,000 students myself. But in the end, I looked for a small school, something that had engineering, because that was a big thing, even though I had since changed my major. But I think those two things were a big deal, along with that my mom and dad really thought that it was a good fit for me.
So I pretty much grew up bleeding maroon. I have a big A&M family. So when college got closer, it pretty much was hopefully I would get in or get into a blend team or something like that. But got lucky, got in, and I've loved every second of it. And I got to be there while my brother was there, and parents come out frequently for the games. So it's all been really, really great.
My uncle would take me to a lot of the baseball and football games at UT, so he kind of got me hooked. Also, they take a lot of the AP credits, and they're pretty lenient with the score.
I heard about Schreiner from, I think it was Boyd Brower and Connie Wilson from Briarwood. We heard about the LSS program, which is headed by Dr. Drew Gallick, like the Jones place over at Bone School. It's a very forward-thinking program. They have tutoring that's basically unlimited. I tested that for they do limited. But it's also very well set up. The professors there really enjoy having LSS students. And they like Houston people as well a lot too.
Great. Tell me about selecting classes. You discussed your majors or mentioned your majors. Tell me about the process of registration. Do you have preferential registration because of your learning difference and support services?
Schreiner didn't have any preferential treatment, which was good. You signed up based on senior, freshman, whatever you were. And it was at 6 a.m. in the morning, which it can definitely change. And as a freshman in the LSS program, they walk you through it later on in the classroom, going through registration and everything. And in these days, you have to have your advisor sign off with the registrar that you have met certain requirements.
You get early, you get to be the first ones to register at UT. It's really good because you get to pick the classes first, and classes fill up very quickly at UT if you don't have this. So this really helped me get the classes that I need and out at the time I wanted at.
At A&M, if you submit your testing and everything, you get early registration, which is great. The first semester you're there, your testing and everything isn't quite in as early, so you're pretty much registering right away with everyone else at orientation. And then, there's something other than that. I don't know, go ahead off.
You'll think of it.
Yeah.
So at my school, we do not have any kind of preferred choice when it comes to registration. We just kind of get, your number, and it's like a lottery number. And so freshman year, I think it's somewhat random. And then after that, it goes based on credit hours. The more credit hours you take, that kind of places you where you need to be when it comes to registration.
So at the University of Ozarks and the Jones Learning Center, since I'm part of it, I do have priority pre-registration. So I'll register generally when the athletes do. And it just really depends on what's your class level. So if you're not an immediate freshman, then you don't get to register on the first day, but they'll have a schedule that they email out. So it's really helpful so you know when you're supposed to, and they tell who's who and when they're supposed to go. And so it's pretty straightforward, but yeah, pre-registration, so it's been good.
Catherine, how many hours do you typically carry in a semester?
So that varies a lot depending on your year. Starting off freshman year, you typically take all of your math classes, your reading, your writing, your poli-sci, all that. So for me, I stuck to 12 hours because I knew math, I would be taking multiple hours a week studying on the side, and that could become very overwhelming. And when you have a kinesiology, it doesn't really take too much time. So when I add that on, that would maybe be, I started those sophomore year, so I was doing 15 hours. Past semester I did 15 because it's my major for special education, and a lot of them are shadowing, so classes and studying isn't as hardcore, I guess you could say. So it really just depends on the classes you take that semester, in my opinion.
Okay, Sebastian, what about you?
I'm taking 12 and I'm going to take 12 next semester. It's all I really need right now for my degree plan, so it's nice.
Ford?
I took about 12, usually, except for my last semester. I took 15, so hybrid classes and such.
Very good. That is very good. What has been challenging? Have you run into any challenges at college? Academically, or perhaps a professor? Have you ever had to request a change of professor? And do you have any help in selecting your professors? Or word of mouth? How does that work? Okay, Dylan, why don't you take that? Start with that.
That's a big question.
It
I got a lot of questions.
was a three-part question. You can choose any
So-
part of it.
So hold on, what is the question? Like,
Have you faced any challenges?
okay, challenges. Yeah. So since I switched from engineering to business, it was a long process to change advisors. So for the majority of my time at my school, I was my own advisor, meaning I would have to find out what classes I need. I would have to pretty much be in charge of my path, if that makes sense. It's kind of rigorous, but if you do the work, you can find that out. That was just one of the bigger things that I had to deal with. But what are like the other two parts of this question?
There probably were, but we'll
We
keep
can-
rolling.
All right.
So hang on there, I have another question. When you were talking about going to your advisor, talk just a minute, and any one of you, please feel free to respond to this, about the value of self-advocacy.
Yeah, that is a huge thing. So especially when meeting your professors, being a self-advocate can kind of be really useful. So I remember my freshman year, I don't do this now, I really should though, but my freshman year before classes even started, I did my research, I found, on the website, like where their office hours is, when they have their office hours, and I went and I introduced myself, and I actually got a book from one of my engineering professors on the modeling work that we do on computers, which is really cool. And so it kind of like, he made the connection, like, oh, put a face to the name. And so that kind of really helped when it came to making connections with my professors. Anyone else?
One challenge I had in the beginning of the year was when I went and tried to give them my accommodations, they didn't accept it. I gave them my 504 and I had been screened for dyslexia. And they said it wasn't sufficient enough. And so about like 2 weeks before school, I just began the process of what you really needed to do. And pretty much they said they only accepted testing from third parties. Not really, I went to Houston ISD and the screening wasn't good enough. They expected a lot of different types of tests. And I spent like 2 weeks of school trying to figure all of that out. So I recommend you stay on top of that when you begin. Once you find your school, you need to know what they want and if your accommodations are good enough. Otherwise, you can end up spending a lot of money on testing, additional testing that your high school didn't require before.
Yeah. So with that and staying on top of all the accommodation kind of things, I didn't realize this was a big bummer. Freshman year, I take my test in the testing center. I have a separate room, own desk, extra time, and regularly you just have to get your tests scheduled in on tracker is what they call it. It's online, and it has to be a week ahead of time. And you have to have the professor sign off on a piece of paper and then take it to testing center. And so for a final, it needs to be 2 weeks ahead of time, which I did not know, and I was like a day late or something. And so freshman year, first final, math final, I was absolutely freaking out. So making sure, checking up the testing center, knowing how it all works, and getting everything on time. And so most big thing I would do would be first week of school, get your syllabus, put your test in the first week, and you don't have to worry about it again. That was definitely a big one. I haven't made that mistake again yet.
Okay, what are you enjoying about college?
There's a lot to enjoy. I've made so many great friendships. I've met people, I have friends in all different states, and it's really fun, the relationships I've built over time. The organizations are really great. Living with friends is always fun, going to football games with everyone. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just great. There's so many fun things.
It's really like the time of your life, to be honest. It's really great. The friends that you meet is just super enjoyable. Like you said, I have friends in almost every state, and that's really great for if I go to visit. And I've seen 2 of my friends in California just from passing through there, and just you get so many opportunities from these friends that you make, and just the opportunities that it brings. So.
I'm going to be cliche and say again, friends. I've made friends who are international students. Some of them are my best friends, and they might be all the way from Puerto Rico to Guatemala to Haiti. And so it's really cool to be able to say that going to a small town school in Arkansas, I never thought that I'd meet all these people who are from all over the world. So it's fantastic.
About your cheering,
No, for friendships in terms of like.
but the other part that you do, the extracurricular.
For extracurriculars, I would say that I love cheering. I cheer for my school, and it's super fun, and yeah, it doesn't get any better.
So the extracurriculars that I'm in, I was in 3 clubs since I've been at my school. The first one was if anyone knows FSAE, which is like a Formula One creation. It's like where you make a smaller version of an F1 car for school, but my school's too small. But like the only big school that I applied to was UT Arlington because they had a massive one. But yeah, that kind of dissipated, so it's not there anymore. The other one is the student programming board, and so usually at most colleges they have like a concert, they'll throw a concert in, for the students, and that's at my school, that's what I'm in charge of. So that's a big project. And then the last one, I'm involved in a fraternity at my school, and I highly recommend it. I can't really talk about big schools, but for smaller schools it's a different environment for sure.
Actually, I wanted to add that I also am involved in a academic fraternity. It's called Future Business Leaders of America, so Phi Beta Lambda, and then I'm also involved at school as a student ambassador. So I actually give tours to prospective students who are looking to maybe enroll at U of O.
So I am involved in some on-campus organizations. Student Council for Exceptional Children. It goes along with my major. I wanted to gain more experience. I was on a committee for the big event, which is something big that A&M throws every year. And then I joined Greek Life my freshman year, and I've loved it. So I've stuck with that every year. It's kept me pretty busy.
I'm a part of some entrepreneurship clubs on campus. There's a lot to do. You sort of have to find your own thing, but there's always something for anyone.
I'll go back here a little bit and say that what I enjoyed about Schreiner, specifically Kerrville, is it's in the middle of nowhere. It's Cowtown, complete Cowtown. So I'd be able to go to class and then 30 minutes later I'd be fishing. What was the other question?
Any other activities that, are you involved in student government?
So at Schreiner, I was the president of the Ozarks Club, which is a division of the Rotary International Club. We did everything from can drives to helping Habitat for Humanity. We sent over 100 cases of water to North Carolina in September and October. I was a part of 2 or 3 different honor societies. Sigma Beta Delta is the business fraternity there. And then Alpha Lambda Delta or something like that. I was involved in when I was a freshman, sophomore, for people who had GPAs of 3.5 or higher. Pretty much it.
And you're a recent graduate?
Yes.
Right? December. During Or, and I would imagine as you might have, did anyone start living in dorms your freshman year? Typically, I understand you move out after a while. So living arrangements, you don't have to get too personal with that. Go for it.
At Schreiner, you have to live in a dorm for 1 year, and then you get to move to on-campus apartments. And the apartments are much better to live in because you have your own room, you have more privacy. Really describing dorm life as it's horrible and awesome at the same time. And you have people that, you just love to death, and then everybody's walking in and hanging out, and then you want your sleep at 10:30, and the door next to you is going, drinking until 2:30, so.
At my school, generally freshmen live on campus. It's not required, but you generally live on campus. And then generally the next 3 years you move off campus, either in an apartment or a house. And it's also nice, especially your first year, because you get when you go and eat, there's a whole bunch of freshmen, you can meet people that are in the same situation as you.
So I lived freshman year, it was off campus, but it was all freshmen. So it was really great. It was really close to campus. Riding my bike was a 10-minute ride to class, worked out great. And then after that, most people will move into a house in the historic district, which is, I'm still a 10-minute bike ride to class.
Yeah, so at my school, they require you to live in dorms for the first 2 years, and then afterwards you can either move out or you can do whatever you want, and you can continue to have dorms for upperclassmen, but it's really just what you want. So I live in the on-campus apartments there as well. But in terms of dorm life, if you play your cards right, living with your best friend can be one of the greatest things that there are. But at the same time, especially freshman year, it's really hit or miss if you don't know your roommate that well, because it can be awesome, it can get you into some good habits, but your neighbors at the same time might not be the same. So
for me, like he said, we had to live in a dorm for freshman year. And then there is housing for upperclassmen on campus, as well as there are off-campus, but still university-owned apartments. And so that's where I'm currently living. I'm living in the university apartment. It's about 3 minutes down the hill from my classes, and so it's nice. But I would say that dorm life definitely can be rough. You definitely want to use earphones because it's going to be super rowdy, super loud. But in terms of having roommates, I only had one for my first semester, and I've only had 3 total, and they've only spanned a semester each throughout my 4 years so far at college, and it's been nice. And Ozarks has a lot of options, so if you don't want to have a roommate, they have individual rooming situations for, if you're on the LD spectrum and you have, I know for the autism community, they offer housing solely for them in certain dorms that are regulated for those who have it. And so there's just a lot of opportunities for you to experience all kinds of housing at Ozarks. Depends on your needs.
I want to go back to the academic piece. Approximately, how many hours a day? You were probably going to answer the other question, but hold that line. How many hours do you study approximately a day?
at my school, it's kind of rough most of the time because in general, my school's pretty hard. And so on a daily basis, I usually leave my apartment around 9 because I like to have early classes just to kind of make sure I'm on campus, and then I make a point to not leave until later that night. And so I usually get back around 7. And so while not like 100% of the time is spent, studying because I have to eat and do stuff like that, but that's a kind of general aspect of, I guess, how much time I study, except for finals. When it's finals time, you're in the library the whole time.
I tried to treat it kind of like a work schedule. I would get up, I was in the library at 8 a.m. and I would try to stay there until 5 p.m. and then I'm in the middle of campus, so I just go to class in between there. And it was nice because I was up to date with everything, got all my things finished on time, so that was great. But as time goes on, and now I'm taking on more education classes, so For instance, on Monday, I had class from 10 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. And so I was dead after that, so I wouldn't really study after that. But in between classes, I would try to read some notes, but usually just kind of rest a little bit. So the other 2 days a week, I would be shadowing into school. And so that's from 7 a.m. until 3:30. And then I'd go straight to the library for about 2 or 3 hours to make sure I was up to date with everything.
I didn't really have a rigorous schedule this semester, so I had an unusual amount of studying, like a little bit less than normal, probably an hour a day. But generally, if tests do come up, you definitely want to, I definitely put in multiple hours a day to prepare for it.
I'm going to say that it varies from year to year. As a freshman, I would probably spend about 6 to 8 hours a day going from studying classes, tutoring, more studying groups. That went up as time went on, especially when I got up into upper level finance and management courses. It would go from 6 to 8 to 8 to 10. Last semester I was continuing 14 hours a day probably.
Wow. And I'm glad you mentioned study groups. That's the question I was going to ask. Have any of you, in addition to the board, has study groups, and has it been effective or not? Okay, that's good.
Other than when you, at least for my studying, I'd read the textbook, and then the next step would be to go to my study groups and try and either work through like the problems that we had, or just explain the stuff. And that step of working with people and trying to explain it to other people, it really bridges probably the biggest gap for me to learn the material.
I learned well, mostly one-on-one, so I just looked up the tutoring centers in College Station, scheduled a couple times, to where when I got a good grasp of everything, I would have a friend in the class, we'd meet up, and if they knew someone, it kind of just grew over time. But if it was groups, honestly, going to office hours, there would be a handful of people, and then the teacher would end up leaving, and she would just say, y'all have the room for the next 2 hours if y'all want to hang out here. And then you'd meet more people, keep in contact throughout the week, text them. So that would kind of turn into study groups. Each semester it kind of worked out really well like that.
So my biggest study group is really with like my close-knit group of friends, and that's the ones that, we can kind of sit in the circle or at tables and just kind of say, hey, we got to do our stuff. And that's like the first study group. And then the second one is in my fraternity, because it's standard that we do that, like 2 times a week set by the university. That one's not as effective, but it's still there.
So I think it's really interesting that y'all have actually utilized study groups having an LD, but for me, I feel like study groups have never really worked. I have an assigned tutor since I'm in the Jones Learning Center, and I have one for each of my classes that I feel like is necessary. And for some of them, I predetermine with my coordinator at the end of the semester when I'm preparing for next semester's classes. We'll sit down and we'll look at, okay, what tutors do you need for these classes, and do you feel like you're going to need one for this one? And if I don't, I tell her, and then she's like, okay, we'll just do it as is, since we want you to be able to have one in case you really do end up needing one. And so it's kind of like fail-proof for me to be able to have my tutor and just meet individually with them and work with them, but study groups I've never really utilized. So I think it's great that y'all have that and can use it.
Talk about or share with our audience, is it important to go to class?
Yes. 100% yes.
A lot of classes I really didn't want to go to, but it's more of a mental thing. Like if you go to class, you show up, it kind of makes you want to read the textbook after you go to class. If you don't go to class, you're never going to read the textbook.
And a lot of professors, most of the time, will talk about, they'll say a funny story or something off topic, and it will be on the test. So going to class, 100%, there's 15% of the test is strictly certain things to be said in class. So being present in class, and you have to be taking notes. very important.
And on time.
Yes. Well, it's awkward walking in late. It's so awkward. You have a room of so many people, and you don't want to do that.
Largest class size, and go ahead and answer that other question too, but think about the largest class that you have had at your university.
My university has pretty big class sizes. My biggest class was my microeconomics, which was 500 people. But half the people didn't show up mostly for those days, so it is pretty empty.
So for them, attendance was not important.
For the big classes, not really, but some teachers do.
Do they take roles, sort of, or they know that you're there?
Probably two of the classes. Some do use the clicker to know if
Right.
everyone's there. But two of my I had classes with 20 people in them. They took attendance in those.
Good class because it's going to count for your grade. If it doesn't count for your grade, the professor will see that you were in class every day except maybe 1 or 2 days. And it may not be for a grade, but it will go into your grade for extra, or say you had a quiz that you just totally bombed, and they'll be like, okay, this person was in class every single day, I'm going to up that grade a little bit. Largest class size at Schreiner would typically be about 35 people.
And, sorry. I had my professor actually, when there was a difference and students didn't come that day, you could see it. He had everyone write down their UIN, their student number, or their name, and gave everyone an extra point on the test or for their final grade at the end of the semester. And that was a big help in that one class.
So my biggest class size was about 30, but at my school, they really emphasize small class sizes, so my smallest one was actually around 5, and that's including me, so. And then in terms of showing up, yeah, do that, because in my Spanish class that I took, she had a big emphasis on, attendance, and so based on your attendance, because she records it every single time, that determines whether you have to take the final, which is a big thing, which is great that I showed up for that.
I would say going to class matters no matter what age you are or what grade you're in, but definitely in college, whether they take an account for it as part of your grade, I don't think that should determine whether you show up or not. That's just me. I know that I have a guilty conscience if I don't show up to class that day, so I really made it a priority to make sure that I show up, and your teachers will take notice, and in terms of teachers taking notice, they'll notice when you don't show up. And I had probably my biggest class this past semester was probably 30 maximum, but when I give tours to students at University of the Ozarks, I always show them the psychology classroom as well as our business classroom, which holds a maximum of 30 to 40 people, and generally speaking, it'll never be completely filled, even when there's full occupancy for that class that semester, so just goes to show how small our school really is.
Next question. When we were in our little meeting before we came in, we were talking about a syllabus and the importance of keeping that syllabus with you. Catherine, would you like to talk about that for a second? And then we'll go back.
So I was telling them the story right before. Last semester, it was finals, and in the syllabus, it's your Bible that semester. Our final was an hour earlier than normal, and so one girl ended up texting everyone saying, "Hey, I'm running a little bit late. Can y'all let the professor know?" And everyone's like, "We all already finished our final. I'm so sorry." So she wasn't even able to take it. But you definitely, there are so many assignments that are hidden through there that the professor is not your mom. They're not going to remind you every day. You have to, the first thing I do every semester is write every assignment down, every test, everything in my calendar, and I worry about that. But yes, I would do not lose it.
And you were given that syllabus at the beginning of the semester.
Yes, so at A&M, you have, it's eCampus. And every professor, you have your own page for your class, and they all upload their syllabus on eCampus. So if you do lose it, you can look it up on there, but yeah, you just don't want to lose it. But I had some professors that will hand it out during syllabus week.
through LSS, I was able to utilize technology called a Live Scribe. And Live Scribe is a pen that records your professors, and you have special paper that you write on it, and the app goes to your phone. And what I would do is I would sync what I wrote on my phone and on the paper when they would give out the syllabuses, and I would take a calendar or a chart, and I would map out everything for the next 4 weeks, and even for the entire semester. My finance professor was always saying, take my syllabus, go through the entire thing, cover to cover, and put everything in a calendar and circle it. So what I would do is I'd take it one step further, and I'd put, okay, a test on November 22nd at 10 p.m., intermediate financial management. Okay, I've got a timer that tells me 20 days before that test and 10 days before that test. And I know that at that 10-day timeline, I'm getting a study guide. At the 5-day timeline, I need to have that entire study guide mapped out, color-coded, whatever you need, and I would take it to my tutor, and they would help me go through it and say, okay, you need to work on this, you have this calculation down, go on to the next thing.
Great discipline I'm hearing from all of you, and organizational skills. Wow. Wow.
I know Briarwood Rowing can attest to this. They have these binders, and mine always looked like an atom bomb went off in it. But I would take one of the binders. In the first 2 years I was at Schreiner, I actually used that binder with the organizational method that the students at Briarwood were taught. And about third year, I kind of grew away. I was tired of carrying it around. But I would take folders, individual folders, each class, with a notebook or a Word document on my laptop or iPad with each one. If you're not organized in college, go get a job at McDonald's, because you're not going to survive. There's so many things that you're going to have to keep track of. And especially if your schools like A&M, Texas Tech, UT, I can't imagine. It's probably a nightmare.
I mean, I do the same things as them. When I got with my syllabuses, they give you all the timelines ahead of time, so you know exactly what's coming up, you know what's happening throughout the year. And I spent probably 2 hours writing down everything in a planner. And then I would set a sort of like a mental timer for 2 weeks out, so I could begin studying and really preparing for those tests.
Wow.
So like Ford said, we were taught at Briarwood a lot of great organizational skills. I really wish I'd used those, but I'd been taught at Briarwood my freshman year, and so eventually I kind of, was like, hey, I need to get on top of this and take hold of being organized again, because I know how to do this, and it's just more of a matter of setting aside time throughout each day to make sure I keep up with it, because if you don't, it'll kind of like take over your life. Like on a weekend when you'd like to be doing other stuff, you'll find yourself having to spend it organizing when you should have been doing it throughout the week. And so for me, I do what Ford does, kind of not with like excessive timers, but but I definitely do everything digitally. I don't remember to write things down in an actual planner, because they might sit in my backpack and it might be super cute and it have the prettiest pattern in the world, but it doesn't matter, and I will forget to write stuff down. So having things that can sync with Google Calendar on my MacBook, it's really convenient, because if I forget it and I meet with my coordinator at the Jones Learning Center, which I meet with my coordinator every day, generally speaking, and so I'll meet with her and then we'll sit down and we'll plan out things for the next 2 weeks generally, and most of the time I'm already on top of it. But if I forget my MacBook, I have it on my phone. So I found digital works best for me for organizing, but definitely having a binder system is very handy, and I'm glad I use it now.
And thank you for the plug. I did not pay them to say it. System. It is great and it works. When we were in our room visiting before we came in, we talked a little bit about owning your diagnosis. not hiding behind it, owning it. You have the mic. Talk to us about that.
So,
And some of you might have multiple diagnoses, but you don't have to reveal that.
Yeah.
You can if you want.
so when I was growing up, it was something I struggled with, but especially by the time I got to high school and I was paying colleges, that was really when I got used to it. So by the time I got to school, I was really on par with everyone else. Reading was still a little bit more difficult for me, but I can cope with that. And I just kind of worked through it. But at this point, it's not something that I recognize. It's something that I know it's there, and I don't really notice it. So.
Yeah, growing up, it was always a big pain being behind other students, and when all my friends were going to hang out with each other, and I was going to tutoring after school, and that was extremely frustrating. And I don't ever remember a time I was told I had a disability. It's just kind of something that in the back of my head I just knew because I was getting pulled out of class to do extra practice reading when the whole class would be doing like coloring or something random. So growing up, I just knew all that. And what was the main question?
Okay. Some people have multiple diagnoses, ADHD, any of
Yeah.
name it.
So I always knew I had problems reading, didn't necessarily know like dyslexia. Figured that one out over time, it didn't take me long. I was surprised, I was reading over my mom's shoulder, she was writing an email, and it was saying something about my testing, and it was about short-term memory and ADHD, and I was like, oh my gosh, no way, that's why? And it all clicked, and that was probably middle school or something. And it was nice knowing, because when you're with friends and then you're noticing that stuff, it was nice having a reason to it, because it's not necessarily something I'm embarrassed of. It's just something I've had my whole life, and I see where I'm at right now, and there's no reason to be embarrassed, just because it's made my drive tremendously high, and I'm proud of where I am right now, so I can thank all my learning disabilities for that.
Wow.
About not hiding behind it, at least for me, I've found that especially in college, I've had to write a lot more, and before I just say I'm bad at writing. But now I realize with a lot of things that I struggle with, it's more of a process. You sort of have to actually work with it and not just run away from it, oh, I'm not a good writer, I can't do this, but instead actually go into the writing center multiple times and learning what you can do better. And over time, you really do get better, and people will stop noticing it. And it just takes a little bit more effort.
One thing I would say is stop looking at your learning disability as a disadvantage. It's a complete advantage. In 2016, one of the Trump administration's cabinet members, Gary Cohn, he was a very high-ranking partner at Goldman Sachs. He walked away with about a $300 million severance package, and he had dyslexia. I think it's over 50% of Fortune 500 CEOs have dyslexia, ADD, whatever. So call it an OA. I call it an OA. I call it a learning advantage. My junior year, I went in front of our board of directors at Schreiner University with the sole purpose of getting money from them to put into LSS. As my mom will tell you, I'm very good at getting money from people. And so one of the things they're doing is they're investing more into technology. They're investing in iPads, they're investing in these pens, and it's all helping students to come out from behind the curtain of, I've got dyslexia, I've got ADD, I've got Asperger's, I've got something on the autistic spectrum. So don't hide behind it, especially not with your professors. I have so many professors right off the top of my head who know who I am because I'm in the LSS program. It's something that a lot of alumni from Briarwood 2 kind of helped me with. And then I've had professors who said, you're in LSS, you're automatically, a few rungs higher on the ladder in my book because I know that you have to work harder. that saved my life in a research class this past semester. There are disadvantages with some professors, especially if they're a little older, that I've run into. There's a little bit of a bias. One professor I had, he was very, very successful. But he said, you don't have ADD. I was like, well, I got the documentation to prove it to you. That turned into a little bit of a spat. But always tell your professors, hey, I've got this. Hey, I need to sit in the front row of class, and go talk to them every day, every week, whatever you do. Cultivate a relationship with those people, not only to succeed in college or in class or at the university, but afterwards networking and getting that next job, that venture, whatever it is.
And you answered my next question. So good for you. And it is, and I'll ask the rest of you. Do you ever see your learning difference as a gift? And you do.
I'm gonna have to pass for this one.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
That is a tricky one because it has built me into who I am and I'm definitely proud of it. A gift is hard because it has been a pain for years and there have been so many struggles and meltdowns, but it has pushed my drive, which is really great, and built me into who I am. And honestly, with professors like he was talking about, like for me, it helps because you have your printed accommodations, you go to them for office hours, they know your face, they know you're a hard worker and everything. You go to class, they know your face right away. So they notice it every single time, and when you have to ask them a question, they're like, okay, they need the extra help, and then they love you. Like, they love helping you out because honestly, not many students stay after to ask questions or go to office hours, and that is so important. And so that was a gift in those classes.
100% it is a gift to me because growing up, I'm gonna be real with y'all, I did have a lot of friends and people who call me names and they call me stupid and stuff like that, and that as a small boy really got to me. I was more sensitive, and that kind of thing really puts you down until you kind of grow up. You kind of learn to use that as a motivator, and then the same people who call me stupid, they call me these names, they're high school dropouts. They drop out of college, and then it's just kind of like, wow, it kind of puts things into perspective. So it's definitely a good motivator.
So, in terms of did you ask Ms. Willis yet about when we were first diagnosed, or when we remember being diagnosed?
I have not asked that, but that would be, we could take that one.
Okay.
That's one of the
Well,
questions.
I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was about 6 years old, and I remember it was actually my public school teacher before I switched to private school in second grade. I would spend 20 minutes every morning before class started. My mom would wake me up, and then I would be so tired and stuff. And I remember the only crystal clear thing about before I started taking medicine at age 7 was that age 6 was really confusing, and public school was really hard. And I only had one friend, and she also had a learning difference. She also had ADHD like me, so we were two peas in a pod. But if it hadn't been for my public school teacher, talking to my mom, because I'd had reading delayed reading abilities, and so she worked with me, and she told my mom, I think your daughter has ADD. She doesn't focus very well, and it makes a lot of sense because I would never understand why my card was, behavior card was on a bad color, or why what did I do wrong to get in trouble, and it was just because I wasn't listening, and so once I started taking medicine, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, it really helped me make sense of the world around me, and also make sense of myself, that there's nothing wrong with me, but there's something different. And so then slowly, just with age, I learned how to navigate it. And the one thing I remember one doctor telling me is, don't ever blame, saying, oh, I have ADHD. It's not something that's a bad thing, but it's also not a label to hide behind. It's just something that you work with, and it grows with you, and eventually it grew on me that it's okay to have it, and Briarwood taught me to actually learn how to love it, I'm I'm proud. I'm proud to be ADD. Yeah, so I think it's a gift. I think it makes you think creatively. And actually was talking to my dad earlier about what Ford said. A lot of the most successful people in the world, they have some kind of learning difference, and so it should feel pretty cool that you have something that some of the most successful people in the world have. And yeah, just love yourself and love what you have.
And another question, and we'll soon ask audience next questions, ask our audience next questions. Prior to your high school graduation, you probably did take either the ACT or the SAT. Just, let's run down and tell me which one you took, or maybe both. So, yes.
So I took the ACT, I took the SAT as well. I took that once, I didn't like it. So I took the ACT and I got tutors and I ended up taking it 5 times. So I just really wanted to get the best score I could, so I tried, and it worked.
I only took the ACT, took it multiple times. My score went up tremendously from the first time to the last time. Lots of tutoring, extremely worth it. So.
I took the ACT. I never took the SAT. That just sounded super daunting. But I took the ACT about, I think, twice. I took the first time at Briarwood, and then we were able to retake it. And so I did better my second time. But I took the ACT.
I took both. I took the ACT one time and the SAT maybe 2 or 3 times.
I took the ACT twice, both my senior year. And then I don't really remember being diagnosed with ADD or autism. I just remember not being able to read in 2nd grade. That was difficult. It was definitely something I would not recommend if I could possibly recommend it. It's kind of like pulling teeth almost. And then I went to Joy School over in the Montrose, and I was brought up from a 1st grade reading level to a 3rd grade reading level. And I found something that I liked to read about. I was big into basketball, big into sports, and that pushed me to want to.
Great. Okay. Next question, 2 more questions. What advice, be brief, what advice would you give our students in the audience? Give 1 bit of advice. We have a lot of students, and we thank you because you're probably going home and doing homework tonight, right? What advice would you give our students in the audience?
Have fun. You're only in college once, for sure. Go out there and meet people, do fun stuff, join a club, do intramurals, do something of that nature. Find something you're passionate about. If you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to do it for very long. Fortunately, my passion and my hobby is business, and fortunately, both those things make money. The other thing is learn from your professors. I've learned more in the past 4.5 years from some of my mentors at Schreiner than I did in the classroom.
Mine would be don't underestimate how much time you're probably going to have to be calling different centers or different places at the university because you have so many more hoops to jump through if you have a disability. So just be prepared for it. It's sometimes a little difficult because they'll just send you around different places and you'll end up back in the same spot, but it's worth it to get through all those hoops and get the designation, and then all these other doors open up and it makes it so much easier.
I have to add something real quick. Work harder than everyone else in your class. It'll show. It'll show that you're in the library from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night, and your professors will thank you for it.
I guess for me, I found it very helpful taking my political science and those kind of classes over the summer. Some online. I found it saved me a lot of time. It got me some extra A's, and I am so happy I did that. It kept my schedule. I was able to keep 12 hours and not be behind at all. In the classes, when I took it over the summer, it was quick, easy, worth it.
So, I would say that a personal belief of mine is really that everything happens for a reason. And so when you go to college, I don't know one person that has had, just breezed through it. They've really either had work, they had a struggling moment, whether that be through the whole thing or at one particular moment during their college career. And so mine came when I had one bad professor make me drop physics, and then I switched from engineering to business and entrepreneurship, and that was the best thing that ever happened. Me going through having this bad professor really brightened me and made me realize that business and entrepreneurship is really where I'm meant to be. So whenever something looks like a struggle, it could just be an angel in disguise, quote unquote.
So if I could tell y'all one thing for you students, I would say don't be afraid to dream big if you have a learning difference. And also, I would just say work hard, it'll show, and just find something that makes you happy. For me, that's cheer, and that's also being able to help other people, and I love being able to do that through business, and just be happy and make sure you take care of yourself too. Mental health is important in college, but yeah, just try your best and think positively and put forth effort, and it'll all pay off in the grand scheme of things. Also internships, definitely invest in internships later in college. I did one last summer in DC, and I did it in marketing communications, and worked for a nonprofit, and it was fantastic. And I definitely say that that's what they're looking for now is students who are applying for internships. It's kind of like what jobs are looking for in future candidates. So if you're in college or thinking about it, consider applying for those. It's important.
Thank you. Thank you all. Learn a lot. Fantastic. You all have done marvelous sharing, opening up everything, teaching everyone here tonight, and I thank you for serving. So let's take a few minutes. Are you willing to take some questions from the audience? So we'll take a few questions up until about 8:15. Yes.
I have a quick question regarding medications. For those of you who took medications in your younger years, say during high school, are you still taking medications?
I could easily answer that. Yes, ma'am. I currently take Adderall. I've been on it since I was 7, and when I started taking medicine, and it's just like really crucial for me to take it. I definitely notice a difference when I don't take it. But if I take it later in the day, it's just yes, I take it, and probably will most of my adult life.
Yeah, so I was on, I don't remember what it was called, but it was something to help me focus, and I took that when I was younger, and then I made a point because it wasn't myself when I was on it, and so I really did not like it for obvious reasons. So I really made a point to outgrow it, which I have. I don't take any medication for it anymore, and I've gone past needing it, and I confidently know that I don't need it anymore.
I started taking medication early in high school, and after a couple different things, I couldn't find something that I really liked, and then 5-8 is what I've been taking recently, and it's been working great. Shows in my grades, definitely.
I took Adderall when I was in the first to about the 5th grade and hated it. And this past summer I got back on it, and it's a lifesaver. It honestly helps tremendously.
Thank you. Okay, another question? Yes.
So we heard about the infamous Briarwood binder. It was very good and benefit to you. Is there something in high school today that you're doing that they are teaching you that helped you, and you now look back and go, oh, now I understand what they're doing, or that was really beneficial to me? What other than the binder would you say was probably what you really gained from the training you had at Briarwood?
And you have also asked a question that was one of the ones that we might have asked, and I'm glad you did. And this is how I'm interpreting it, what did you take from your high school or your school into college that has helped you? And you all can talk about the binder system, that is great. The rest of you, Sebastian, is there something you took from your high school that you are using in college?
Definitely using the planner. I mean, you can't remember everything, and now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to like lists for like other things other than school tasks. Otherwise, I'll just forget them.
Make a list daily, I would say. Make a list daily. One thing Briarwood had to do is they had a planner with each day of the week, several lines on it, chart out your entire week, chart out your day. I go a little extreme. I go every 30 minutes. I have something I planned. And then something that really helped from going from Briarwood to going straight into college was how much Briarwood has you write. I know a lot of people who just kind of floundered because they're just like, we have to write a 5-page paper every week for 2 classes, 3 classes, and it helps. It helps to know how to write effectively, and then knowing how to edit as well.
I've just always had my own kind of way to organize, and it's worked great for me. There wasn't really anything specific from high school.
In terms of what Ford said about writing, I actually just want to share like a very brief story. I didn't know how to write even a 1-page essay, short essay. When I came to Briarwood, I knew how to write with really good grammar and punctuation, but everything was just out of order. Like chronological order was really hard for me, and it was Mrs. Knight who actually taught me how to write a paragraph. And I was like, oh my gosh, my mind is blown. Like, things make sense. And when I would ask my mom to help me with proof assignments at home, oh my goodness, I finally wasn't getting like XXX, like this was like, should be here, and then arrows going there. And so she just kind of helped me make sense of how to structure things and how to write a good paper. And I attribute that to her 10th grade writing class. And taking that to college was really helpful.
And the things that you are mentioning, the organizational systems and strategies, they can be implemented all over the place. And what I'm hearing from all of you too, that factors into your successes. You are very disciplined. You discipline yourselves. You set goals and you make lists. Check it off to accomplish it. So all these types of strategies are so important. And when you think about it, they're those easy things to implement. It does take discipline. So, yes, another question back here. Yes.
Do any of y'all use online readers?
Yes, I live by that. Definitely.
You know, is it like a website?
So I use Read and Write Gold. There's plenty of different things, but specifically for this, it's so helpful. If your book is not on Pearson, then like at A&M, if I get it through so text-to-speech is where I get my books. I submit it, text A&M covers it. Honestly, I wouldn't have to pay for it, but I want the tangible book. If it's under Pearson, which now a lot of books are, it comes online as well. And you can highlight, take notes online. My Read and Write Gold allows me any text on my computer, it's going to read it out loud to me, which I just find really, really, really helpful. And I use it for all my classes because I can write my book while I'm listening. I could be walking around my room or something mindlessly, but it's also going in my head. And because there's a lot of reading that you have to do in all of your classes.
That was an excellent question.
Through LSS at Schreiner, they use something called Kurzweil. And in Kurzweil, it doesn't matter the type of company, whether it's Pearson or somebody else, they have all the books that you'll need. And we got it for free because of LSS, but you can get it no matter where you go as well. Kurzweil is K-U-R, yeah.
Z-W-E-I-L.
I was going to ask, like, in terms of when you chose your university where you're going to go to school, how heavily did your need for support weigh into your choice of school? So I think different schools have different reputations for how helpful they are.
Good question.
For me, it was the top of the list. Blake Breyer was a former student at Briarwood. He went to Schreiner, and he touted the LSS program very heavily. LSS, they're miracle workers because not only do you get the notes, you get the books online, they have tutors that help you who have been in the field, they've done the work, they have the experience, and the professors love that.
Another question? Do you have?
Sure. So, I went to college for a long time as well, and how do you know when you kind of hit the wall, right? Because sometimes when you go to college, you know, you get so much that you're loaded within that first semester or two, and you hit the wall, right? How do you know when you've hit it, and what do you guys do to kind of work around?
So at the beginning of the year, I said I wrote down all of my assignments, and syllabus week, you're kind of laid back because easy in class, you should go through your syllabus. Next week, you're ready for an easy week, and you're like, well, did you get this reading done, this reading done? And honestly, it's pretty much the beginning of every semester that I've noticed, I get really, really, really overwhelmed, and it's just staying up to date. It's when I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is just not possible, I can't get all these readings done, and that's when I wake my mom up at 3 a.m. with a call, having a heart attack. And she's like, hey, well, I'll call you tomorrow morning, we'll get it all figured out. And it's just nice having someone there to sit, listen, not stress me out. It's just like, okay, let's come up with a plan. Like, when they talk to you calmly, and it makes it to where when you get that 30 on a test, and oh my gosh, I'm never gonna tell my parents they're gonna kill me, it's not bad. Because that did happen to me, and it was horrible, but I ended with a 99 in the class. It's just, you need your parents to call when you start getting overwhelmed. So that would be my tip to all parents in the room, is just being there and being calm and open to it, because it's hard, college is hard, and as long as you got someone to lean on, or have someone to lean on, then you'll always feel comfortable and you'll never feel like you're hitting a wall and can't have someone to go to, because that's when it's scary, or like overwhelming.
So to answer your question in the back, the lady with the blonde hair, I would say that it was a top priority that I have a strong academic support for when I go to college, and U of O actually has the oldest learning support center, I believe, in the United States. And so it was like founded in the mid-1800s, like 1850s or something, and so it's been around for a long time, but it was definitely a top priority. And then to answer your question, when I hit the wall, and which does not happen very often, because I have a coordinator that I was assigned starting freshman year, you're assigned a coordinator in the Jones Learning Center. That's supposed to stay with you for like the course of your 4 years at Ozarks. I've actually had 3, but that's a whole other story. And so when I hit the wall, I go to her, we make a plan, and then generally everything works out fine. Like when I had statistics, that class killed me nearly this last semester. My dad's sitting in the back and he knows all about it, and he kept on asking me when I came home for break, before winter break, and he's like, so what's your plan? What's your plan? And I was like, I'm working on it, like my coordinator and I have worked on it, and so, but I didn't want to hit a wall. I didn't want to end up with a D in my stats class, and I actually managed to, I'm not proud I came out with a C, but you know, it was what they wanted, and we were both happy, and I was able to finish the semester with still a 3.0, but it was really hard. I'd say that was me hitting the wall almost.
Thank you. And because we're running out of time, because I know everyone has to get home, I'm telling you to go home and do your homework. And what we will do is close, and then are you all okay if people come up and ask you questions individually? Will that work? So you might have specific questions for individual panelists. So thank you, House, for hosting us. Thank you, Mary and Mary. And thank you for coming. And another round of applause for our panelists.